and welcome to another jungle tutorial. My name is Virkayu, and in this guide we will be looking at how you can go about playing smart and safe as a late game jungler versus an early game 1v1 threat. After this video you should be able to avoid examples like those on your screen now, where you get invaded, die 1v1 and fall behind way too easily in the early game. We're going to look at examples that help you get through the early game unscathed and ahead, or at the very least neutral. I will explain in detail the decisions I made in two different types of games, as usual. With the rise of Ezreal as a dominant anti-tank early game jungler, I thought I'd show you a diamond solo queue game of me as the weakest jungler, Ornn, playing against him. In the second game, we will be Warwick versus Kha'zix, and while Warwick is great versus Kha'zix after level 6, at level 3, he can still chunk you and kill you 1v1 due to your longer cooldowns and his strong isolated burst damage. Let's start with the Ornn Ezreal game. We have a Braum support and decide to go for a cheeky invade because of our combined CC. The point of this is simply to gather where Ezreal is starting, rather than, go for an invade for kills. Although, if we catch someone we could definitely do that. Normally I would start Raptors, maybe do my red or warp my red, and then move down to my blue and wolves as Ornn. In the case of Ezreal, I would assume if I wasn't invading he'd be stealing my red at some point, so I don't know if I'd want to stick around too long with my clear time being significantly longer. In this instance, none of their team are watching the entrances to their jungle, so they're unsure where I'm starting either. I steal the red with the help of my bot and immediately notice the enemy top laner is late to lane while their bot shows up first. While we knew he was most likely a blue anyway, it's important that you all use this strategy regularly in the case you don't know where the enemy started. At this point now, I have two options. I can take his Raptors also, and then move to my blue, assuming he will simply go steal my red in an attempt to kill me or to deny me a buff. Or I can go to my blue. I choose the latter, as you can see, because it's a safer route. We don't know if Ezreal is moving down to take his red, or if he's going to steal mine. And these are the mind games. If you know you're playing a scaling jungle like a tank versus a high DPS early game powerhouse, as with Ezreal and Nidalee, it's important you actively try to avoid them, and so choosing more conservative starting routes is an imperative thing for you to do. The first thing is to know where the enemy started so you can react accordingly. If that means giving up a buff, you do it. Even if it means being 3 buffed. Why? Because if they are spending all the time taking 3 buffs, you can gank, you can gain vision, and they're wasting their early power spike farming 3 camps. You just need to ensure that you're securing the buff that's most important to you for that early game and that allows you to control some side of the map. For a lot of champs that will be blue. However, usually if you can isolate where the enemy is starting and anticipate them stealing one of your buffs, you can counter by stealing theirs respectively. The main thing is to avoid any possible 1v1 duels or skirmishes where your laners cannot help you. And translating that back to this game, if Ezreal catches me at level 2 trying to take his Raptors, I would probably die. So I figured I would just take my entire blue side jungle, as I most likely have lost red anyway. Once confirming that I have in fact lost red, Ezreal shows top for his first early gank. When you see a jungler ganking, especially an early game jungler, it's important you extrapolate his pathing after the gank, see if he goes back, see which direction he heads. Given the fact that on the scoreboard I saw he had 4 CS and he didn't go back after ganking, that means he took his blue, my red, his grump, as well as scuttle crab. I use this opportunity to gank mid. I know he's going to be doing his wolves. I use my Q and W combo with an auto attack, and I wait for Nivea to set up a wall so I can use my E to knock Corki up. He anticipates this, and we get him to burn his flash and his cleanse almost instantly. Immediately I move to counter jungle the Ez again. I know I won't get all the Raptors, but it's worth a shot to deny him because he most likely went back after taking his wolves. I get most of the small ones before he arrives and I have to E away to safety. Even though Nivea did TP back, she has a minion wave and I wouldn't last very long with my spells and CD and the fact that he would destroy me 1v1. I take the Scuttle Crab, always imperative versus aggressive early junglers, make sure to keep River Vision with Scuttle and Pinks, and I go back after venturing bot. The reason I went bot here is in case Ez wanted to move down to gank as they were pushing. I last saw him with the Raptors and the only place he hadn't shown on the map was bot lane, and therefore I'd be in position to counter gank if needed. Nothing happened, and so of course I went back and got some control wards, and always keep control wards up and try to ward the enemy's jungle if you can. It's extremely important for strong junglers that you know where they are. You want to avoid them as much as possible. You want to counter gank and gank without ending up in a 1v1 situation. After buying, I noticed Ez once again didn't go bot lane, but he went top, and so I moved toward his jungle. It's important that I gain as much farm as I can, and if it's his farm, then all the better. In this game I heavily out-counter jungled him 17-2 as Ornn. He was trying to gank a lot and his pathing wasn't that diverse or interesting, and it was easy for me to take advantage of it. I begin to counter jungle his Krugs, knowing that his red is up against soon and he's currently top lane. The key here is to remember minion waves when you do Krugs in the enemy jungle. If you stay in the pit while doing them, you won't show yourself to anyone or anything walking by in the lane. Also remember that minion waves mirror each other, and I can see that one of my minion waves is coming past my inner tower and the first gap in my jungle. This means that there's a minion wave right where I'm doing Krugs. If I was to space myself out to kite the camp as you usually would, then I would be 100% seen by the enemy. So in this case, I make sure to sit tightly in the cockpit while killing them. I then take his red and finally his raptors. His whole bot side is mine and I have total control of that side of the map. And we've only seen each other once. On my way out of the enemy jungle, I forget to hit the plant, but that would be a great thing to do as it denies Ezreal the opportunity of seeing any vision I have in the river or where I am. He's attempting to snowball the Maokai versus a Jax, and that's his mistake as my first gank gave Anivia all the lane advantage she could want. Even though it was a close battle, she's actually solo killed him since then, and she's also of course pushing the whole time. You want to keep as much farm and information away from the stronger jungler without having to fight him. You want to take towers, deny him farm, gank and counter gank where you can with minimal risk and force the game into a period where skirmishing and teamfights are occurring. The fact that Ez has grabbed a few kills isn't really a problem as we have map control and a neutral bot. Thankfully, Ezreal wasn't proactive and didn't steal my second red. I take it and move top with Anivia. She saves the low in HP Jax and our gank gets him back into the game despite Ezreal's early game pressure. And from this gank we gain the first tower, opening up the top side of the map after we already took complete control of his red side. The bot lane's had a bit of a tumultuous period since then, dying to Corki and Ezreal ganks despite the wards and pings, and so after going back, I head in that direction as I see Ezreal attempting to gank bot again. He's trying to force issues now because he knows he needs to start to get his team involved and not just himself. I see my Anivia being a bit greedy trying to steal the enemy raptors, and I also see the Ezreal move in that direction, meaning they must have seen her. I mirror him, cut him off, and kill him to save the Anivia, and then I smash his corpse with my hammer many times to let him know who the big furry daddy is. From here I move my pink vision up into his jungle and take his red again. He has been completely shut out of this quadrant of the map. There's no farm, we've always had vision, which means he can't gank bot and mid very often without being seen. Jax ganks mid just before me and kills the Corki with Anivia. From this we secure another tower, I save the Jax from his crazy deep fight, and then we move out. We've survived the early ganks from Ez, I've denied him a ton of farm to reduce his early spike, we've warded his jungle relentlessly, and now we can help bot a bit more. Anivia and I move down, combo, and force the sums and ults out of Tristana and Janna. Ezreal's power spike has ended, and it ended soon because he was forced to defend towers and rotate to fights we initiated because we had map control and deep vision that he didn't. He didn't get a single one of his own red buffs this game. I completely timed my clears and map movements to deny and avoid him wherever he showed, while still making ganks where necessary, and even though we didn't get a lot of kills from them, we were able to burn sums and create pressure. Here we push out the bot lane, I kill the Ez with my team, and this game's pretty much in the bag. We secure the Rift Herald, collapse on a Maokai to obliterate him, and finish the game not long after. Using smart pathing, vision, map awareness, timely ganks, and quick tower pushing can force the game into a phase where you're grouping, and the threat of having an early game jungler punish you is reduced. He doesn't have the liberty of roaming into your jungle when your lanes are pushed or you have good wards or you know where he is at all times. The ability to counter gank is also very strong when you're in those situations. You've denied them farm, you've saved your team from ganks with your vision, and you've avoided feeding yourself. A win-win. Not every game do we need to have 1v1 strength contests for the jungler and the river to decide who should win the game. The game isn't about just your mechanics or just your jungle picks, guys. It's about your mind and how you play around the information and the laners that you have. Remember, the laners are what matter, and that even if you were the aggressive jungler, you'd need your laners to help you if you wanted to invade. And on that note, the second game is a bit different. Warwick is a decent matchup into Kha'zix post 6, and pre 6 you can do okay, but you have to play perfectly and hope he doesn't get the jump on you. The enemy team wards up my jungle at the start, and so I decide, I'm just gonna go move and start from blue, because as Warwick you can start almost anywhere. In this game I want to make sure my laners get ahead before Kha'zix can get to them, or before we can snowball any kills from that. As an assassin, this is important. I know I can handle him post 6, but these early levels are crucial. After seeing bot lane arriving late, indicating a blue buff start for Kha'zix, I clear my whole top side and move to gank top because Yasuo has gotten enemy Darius low already. We secure the kill through some nice moves, and I move to take the Scuttle Crab. This is where things get interesting. Kha'zix anticipates this and through a smart use of his plant surprises me in the river. I ping for assistance to my laners who are pushing, know to come help. So in this case Kha'zix probably shouldn't be fighting me when his laners are being pushed back into their towers. I use my E2 early because I was anticipating his damage to reduce it, but he waits it out as he can't even see me in the bush anyway. This means my damage reduction is wasted and I only go for fear. I use my Q and autos to try and heal up while also smiting the Scuttle to maintain HP, as his isolated Q damage and kid will 100% kill me at this point. I only just live because Ori rotates first and uses her heal to save me. Yasuo comes down and claims the kill on Kha'zix. In situations like this, don't sit and try and duel the stronger jungler unless your laners are pushing and you know you can hold off long enough for them to arrive. Yes, in some elos, your laners just won't come and you will die, and that's why you probably just want to avoid the fight in the first place. You need to make sure you're doing what you need to do in that game in that moment. It was a risky play because if I die sooner, he can get out and now is a free lead. Fortunately, I held off long enough and Yasuo now has 2 kills. As I know the Kha'Zix is dead and I still have my Rebirth on the map, this is where I need to really take forward and be a bit hyperactive in my ganks while he is a bit behind. Before I can actually rotate to take my red, which I haven't even done yet, mid and bot both get low, and I make a ganking pass at mid before moving to bot and actually kill the enemy ADC. These plays are enabled because I'm Warwick, but the point is to play the matchup you're in. Kha'Zix would not have had the time to respawn and gank or try and 1v1 me, and so I made use of my time on the map and quickly got off 2 more ganks before clearing my red and going back. After this, I know I need to try and get level 6 as soon as possible, and the best way to beat a strong early game jungler, especially an assassin who can get fed quickly and unexpectedly, is to enable your laners and focus objectives. I had top again and we kill the Darius and the tower and we take the tower. Now I have a fed laner who can roam with me and contest Kha'Zix's jungle farm from that top side. The tables have turned and we're completely dictating the actions of the game. We move to take his red as we see it spawning, but I see a gank going on a mid lane against my Orianna. I quickly rotate over to at least secure an assist for her as I kill the Bard. Now, I haven't seen the Kha'Zix for a little bit and I know he's not on the top side, and he may have ventured into my red side jungle to kill me and steal my farm while I was up with Yasuo. It's unwarded, and as you can see by my pathing, I'm a little hesitant, but I figured I have my ult and at this point I should be able to 1v1 him. I survived the early dangerous phases, but sadly I get completely surprised and I miss my ult. The Kha'Zix makes a stupid mistake of invading at 45% HP for some reason, and then he comes back towards me before my E is worn off. This allows the fear to go off, and I use a Q and auto attack to finish him off, but I really didn't actually expect him to be sitting in that bush at that point. I thought he might have been at my red or something like this. Now, he's far behind it, and he won't be very useful if our team plays properly and finishes off the game. If you can put an assassin behind and have a strong team comp with CC, you can usually close the game out well. It's about punishing that early aggression from the enemy or avoiding it and getting your lead elsewhere. So I hope you're able to take some things away from these tutorials. There is the evading method where you counter jungle a lot, ward a lot, but you don't actively look for fights. You gank where you can, but you know you're going to scale and you know you'll be more useful in a team fight. You want to try get the game to that point as soon as possible through objective and farm focus. Don't let him go crazy taking your jungle, ganking, warding while you're basically sitting around crying. Make sure you're dictating what you can to keep yourself up to levels with him and also deny him whenever he shows. In the second game, when you have a mistake made by the enemy jungler, especially when it's an early game one or you just know he's gone back, make sure you get all the things you need to do in that time. Exploit the fact that he isn't around, exploit the fact that you can gank quickly, especially if you're something like Warwick, get that vision, and also make sure to enable your laners so that you can take a tower and seal off a quadrant where he isn't able to run around freely. And with that said, I really hope you learned something from this. I hope you enjoyed it. Smite that like button if you did, comment and talk with me below, subscribe for more jungling tutorials as well as videos coming up about Season 8 and how the runes are going to affect us, in addition to the rise of carry junglers in solo queue again. Thank you very much for watching guys, and as always I will see you all in the next tutorial.